those moments, like a really gut punch moment, when the person you love just walks away, or maybe a dream you poured everything into just crumbles, and the silence that follows feels so heavy, right? It just drowns everything out. I feel like nobody really teaches you how to handle that kind of deep, almost identity-shaking pain. People say, stay strong, but the how is usually missing. They say it gets better, but they're not always there in the wreckage with you. So you're kind of left grasping for something, anything, to make sense of it all.
Yeah, and that's exactly where something like Stoicism comes in. And look, not as some dusty old academic thing, but more like a practical survival guide. For your mind, what's really striking is where it came from. Not universities, not comfortable debates. It was literally forged in the toughest kinds of human experience. We're talking exile, war, slavery, disease. Yeah. The people who really shaped it, figures like Epictetus, Marcus Aurelius, Seneca, they weren't just theorizing about it, they were living. Yeah. And they built something incredibly resilient out of that experience.
Wow. That's a really powerful origin story. Completely changes how you might think about it. So, okay. Our deep dive today, it's not about memorizing names and date. It's about pulling out those vital, practical nuggets from this ancient wisdom. We're looking for the things that can actually help you protect your peace, maybe sharpen your judgment, find your footing when, the world feels too heavy. So let's start right there with where Stoicism actually came from.
Yeah.
Because, it wasn't born in comfort, was it?
Not at all. And understanding that context is, I think, crucial. Take Epictetus. He wasn't some privileged philosopher. He was born a slave in the Roman Empire. His understanding of philosophy came directly from, suffering, from oppression. Yeah. There's that famous, almost chilling story where his master is twisting his leg, apparently just out of cruelty. And Epictetus, totally calm, just says, "You're going to break it." And then, snap! It breaks. And Epictetus apparently just looks up and says, "I told you so." He walked with a limp for the rest of his life because of that, a constant physical reminder. But the insight he pulled from that, the absolute core of it was, you may chain my leg, but not even Zeus can conquer my will. He realized through intense pain that external things can hurt you, yes, but your inner response, your choice, that's untouchable.
That's incredible, especially coming from someone in his position. It's just profound. But then you have someone like Marcus Aurelius. Completely different end of the spectrum, right?
Yeah.
Emperor.
Exactly. A stark contrast. Emperor of Rome, arguably the most powerful, luxury, command, power. Yet, if you read his meditation private journal, the immense personal suffering, constant wars on the frontiers, losing multiple children, ruling during one of the worst plagues in Roman history, imagine that weight. And despite all that external power, he talks about feeling, deep loneliness, anxiety. So for him, philosophy wasn't a hobby. It was a weapon, a tool for survival. His meditations were literally him talking to himself, trying to stay grounded, rational. He wrote things like, "You have power over your mind, not outside of it. Realize this, will find." It was constant practice.
And Seneca too, right? Another major Stoic figure. He wrote prolifically, advising emperors, but always under this looming threat, eventually forced to take his own life. So these weren't guys preaching some kind of forced positivity.
Not at all. They weren't denying reality. They understood it deeply. Their message was essentially, look, life is hard, pain is guaranteed, but here's the thing. You are stronger than you think. They lived that truth.
Okay, so this direct experience with hardship seems to boil down to one fundamental Stoic truth. The idea that, you can't control what happens to you, but you absolutely always control how you respond. And that single choice, that response, that's everything.
That is the lynch. It leads directly to what the Stoics called the dichotomy of control. It sounds fancy, maybe, but it's actually super simple. Profoundly. Life basically has only two categories. One, things genuinely within your control. Your thoughts, your judgments, your actions, your choices right now. Two, everything else, what others think, external events, the past, the future, the weather, traffic, you name it. And the Stoics saw that so much of our suffering comes from pouring energy into that second category, trying to control the uncontrollable.
Right. It's wasted effort, isn't it? It just makes things worse.
Completely. It amplifies the suffering. When you shift your focus entirely onto what is yours to manage your responses, your choices, the rest, strangely, starts to lose its grip on you.
It reminds me of, imagine being caught in a huge ocean, massive waves crashing. Your first instinct might be to fight it, right? To thrash around, panic, try to swim against those giant waves. But you just get exhausted. You end up drowning. Maybe not because of the storm, but because you fought it so hard.
Exactly. That's a perfect analogy.
Whereas the maybe wiser approach, the counterintuitive one, is to float, to let go, to work with the storm's energy somehow, yield to it, rather than trying to overpower the whole ocean.
Precisely. And life is like that storm. Pain is part of it. Disappointment, failure, betrayal, loss. These aren't bugs in the system. They are the system. It's part of the deal of being human. You don't get to avoid it. But you always, always get to choose your response. Real strength isn't found in avoiding hardship. It's found in how you rise. It's that mental shift from asking, why is this happening, to, okay, this is happening, now what?
And that, now what, leads us right into a really practical tool they use, radical acceptance, which as you said, isn't about liking the storm, is it? It's about stopping that futile fight against its reality, facing things as they actually are, not as you wish they were.
Yes, that distinction is vital. Radical acceptance isn't about saying pain is good or that a terrible situation is somehow a blessing in disguise. Not at all. It's simpler. It's just acknowledging this is happening or this happened without resistance. So if your heart is broken, you don't have to pretend it's fine. You don't have to call the pain a gift. You just say, okay, this hurts. It happened. I can't change the past. But, and this is the crucial part, I can choose what I do next.
That tiny shift from arguing with reality to accepting it, that's the exact point where suffering can start to morph into something else, into growth maybe.
And a key way to practice this, something the Stoics themselves apparently did, is journaling. But not just, like writing whatever comes to mind. A specific kind of journaling for clarity. Exactly. It's surprisingly effective. You take a piece of paper, draw a line down the middle. Simple. On one side, you just dump everything out, everything that's bothering you, fears, hurts, stresses, big, small, whatever. Just get it down. Then you go through that list item by item. And on the other side of the line, you ask honestly, is this truly within my control? And what you usually find, often quite starkly, is that most of it isn't.
Yeah.
You can't control if someone replies to your text or what decision your boss makes or if it rains tomorrow. But you can control whether you go for a walk right now, whether you choose to react calmly, whether you focus on this task. And seeing that visually, it helps you pull your energy back from the uncontrollable and focus it where it actually makes a difference. It helps you reclaim your power.
Okay, so we've got accepting what is, but then there's this next step, which feels harder. Maybe even a bit strange at first. Amor Fati, the love of fate. I mean, why would anyone love the things that cause them pain? It sounds masochistic.
It does sound counterintuitive, absolutely, but it's not about finding pleasure in pain or some kind of fake positivity. Amor Fati is more like a deeply resilient mindset. It fundamentally changes your relationship with whatever happens. It's about turning misfortune, setbacks, even tragedies into fuel. Nietzsche had that great line, a blazing fire makes flame and brightness out of everything that is thrown in.
Yeah.
The goal is to become that fire, not something easily put out, but something that actually grows stronger. Every challenge, every piece of wood life throws on. It's about taking the broken pieces, the disappointments, the losses, consciously deciding build something new and stronger from them, something that couldn't have existed without that specific heart.
That echoes Marcus Aurelius again, doesn't it? The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. It's like they saw obstacles not as things to get around, but as the raw material for moving forward.
Precise. The obstacle is the path. Amor Fati suggests embrace even the really tough parts, almost as if you chose it. Not because you wanted the pain, but because you recognize that this experience, this challenge, now part of you, shaping you. You don't have to celebrate the tragedy itself, but you absolutely refuse to be defined or destroyed by it. You choose to make it serve you.
I like the analogy of life as a Ford. Everything that happens, good, bad, ugly, gets thrown in. And Amor Fati is the heat. It doesn't pick and choose. It takes it all.
Wow.
The worst stuff, too. And it transforms it. So maybe heartbreak eventually becomes deeper compassion. Failure turns into hard-won wisdom. Loneliness forces self-discovery. It's like alchemy.
It really is. And the practical way to cultivate this is through reframing your narrative. Take a difficult experience. Instead of just focusing on the hurt, ask, okay, what did this force me to learn? What strength did it uncover? What part of me did it wake up? Maybe it taught you patience you didn't know you had. Maybe it showed you who your real friends were. Maybe it revealed your own resilience. Even if it still hurts and you can still extract meaning. You choose the narrative. You can even practice this with small daily frustrations stuck in traffic. Instead of fuming, ask, okay, opportunity for patience, or maybe to listen to this deep dive.
Right.
These small mental shifts build the muscle for the bigger things. It can actually change your relationship with fear, turning life into this continuous journey of learning and growth.
So dealing with external chaos is one thing, but the Stoics were also really focused on building like an inner fortress. A mind that stays steady even when the world outside is, completely falling apart. Marcus Aurelius again.
Mm-hmm.
Nowhere can man find a quieter or more untroubled retreat than in his own soul.
That's the goal. And it's a huge challenge today, isn't it? We're constantly bombarded, noise, notifications, endless stimulation. Finding that inner quiet takes real effort. But for the Stoics, it wasn't just about feeling peaceful. It was critical for protecting your judgment, your clarity. It's about creating that internal space so you can think rationally instead of just reacting emotionally when things get tough. Avoiding those knee-jerk, often poor decisions made out of fear or anger.
So how did they actually cultivate that inner stillness? One practice sounds pretty dark. Premeditatio malorum, the premeditation of evils.
It does sound grim, but it's incredibly practical, actually, and counterintuitive again. Basically, each morning they'd spend a few minutes imagining things that might go wrong during the day. Not to be negative or invite trouble, but to mentally rehearse. They'd think, okay, What if I face delays? What if someone is rude to me? What if I lose something? What if I get bad news? And then, crucially, they'd remind themselves, if this happens, I will aim to remain composed. I will respond with reason, not rage. I have the tools to handle.
Yeah.
Doing this regularly meant that when setbacks did occur, they felt less shock, less destabilizing, more familiar. It builds mental shock.
That makes sense. And another tool, maybe more accessible for everyone right now, is just breathing, breath work.
Absolutely fundamental. Your breath is always there. It's the anchor. And it's the fastest way to influence your nervous system directly. When you're stressed or anxious, your breathing gets shallow, fast, signals danger to your... But if you consciously slow it down, take deep, deliberate breaths, maybe inhale for 4, hold for 4, exhale for 4, you send a powerful biological signal back. I'm safe. I'm in control. It's not just psychological. It physically shifts you out of fight or flight. And crucially, it creates that tiny vital pause, that space between the event and your reaction. That's where your freedom lives. That's where you regain control. So stillness isn't really about achieving perfect quiet or no problems. It's about maintaining that inner control, right? That conscious choice to stay centered, even when the storm is raging outside. Most of us, myself included, we tend to lean towards comfort. We avoid difficulty, right? Build routines to feel safe. We instinctively shy away from things that feel hard or remind us we're vulnerable. But the Stoics flipped that. They argued that avoiding discomfort actually makes us weaker.
That's exactly the idea behind voluntary hardship. It's so countercultural today. Their logic was, if you only ever experience ease, when real hardship inevitably hits and you'll be completely unprepared, you'll likely crumble. But if you train for hardship, if you intentionally expose yourself to small, manageable doses of difficulty, you build resilience, you build capacity. So when the big storms come, you're ready. You've practiced. It's like the old military saying, train hard, fight easy, or train in peace so you bleed less in war. This applies just as much to mental and emotional battles, anxiety, self-doubt, navigating loss. Most of us just don't train for those. And Seneca, wasn't he the one who, despite being incredibly wealthy, would deliberately practice poverty, sleeping on the floor, eating basic food, wearing simple clothes?
He did exactly that, not because he had to, but to prove something to himself. He wanted to face his fears head on, the fear of losing his wealth, the fear of discomfort. And by experiencing it voluntarily, he realized, okay, this isn't so bad. I can handle this. My well-being isn't actually dependent on these external comfort. Defanged the fear.
So how does that translate for us today? You don't necessarily need to sleep on the floor.
No, probably not. But you can find modern equivalents. Small, intentional acts of choosing discomfort. Take a cold shower, just for a minute, it's bracing. Wake up a bit earlier than you need to. Go for a walk without your phone, just be with your thoughts. Maybe fast for a short period, skip a meal intentionally. These seem minor, maybe trivial, but each one is like sending a message to your subconscious. I can handle discomfort. I am capable. I am strong. Okay. It builds what Nassim Taleb calls anti-fragility. Not just being resilient to stress, but actually getting stronger because of it.
And there's maybe a deeper layer too, that doing this helps detach you from needing constant comfort or luxury. It builds this quiet confidence that you'll be okay regardless of external stuff.
Absolutely. It strips away layers of attachment. You realize what you truly need versus what you just prefer. And that knowledge that you can stand strong with less is incredibly important.
Okay, let's shift to another practice that sounds, a bit morbid on the surface. Memento Mori. Remember, die. Why on earth would thinking about death be helpful, especially when you're already struggling with life?
It sounds grim, I know. But for the Stoics, it wasn't about dwelling on death in a fearful way. It was the ultimate tool for clarity, for perspective. Seriously contemplating your own mortality has this incredible power to shake you awake. It strips away the trivial. Suddenly, all those small worries, what someone thinks of you, that argument you had, whether you met some arbitrary goal, they just shrink. They lose their power when viewed against the backdrop of a finite life. You realize how much energy you might be wasting on things that, in the grand scheme, truly don't matter. It stops you from sleepwalking through your days.
Seneca had the quote, right? It's something like, you act like mortals in all that you fear, and like immortals in all that you desire.
Exactly. We waste time like we have an infinite supply, putting things off until someday. But then we panic over every little perceived threat, as if our immediate survival depends. The Stoics use the reality of death to flip that script, to inject urgency and focus into living, to act courageously now.
So it's not about being depressed about dying. It's about using that knowledge to live better.
Precise. Remembering death also helps you realize that even intense pain is temporary. This too shall pass is implicit in Memento Mori. Everything ends. Your current struggle, your heartbreak, your confusion. It won't last forever. Even the worst day eventually ends. Knowing that, truly internalizing it, can help you loosen your grip on things you can't control. And paradoxically, it can make you kinder, braver, more present, more appreciative of this moment right now. It forces you to prioritize.
So practically, how do they use this? Do they just walk around thinking about death all day?
Not quite. A common practice, closing your eyes and not in a panic. How would I spend these hours? What would I stop? It's not meant to cut spot. You could also reflect on the life that truly mattered about character, connect, how they, not their job title or bank, death, great level. It removes the pressure for perfect courage self someday into now. It make ordinary, if you look at all these ideas, one single thread wove out from Epictetus, the slave, Mark this. Always have a choice. No matter how difficult, fair, how chaotic one, and that's your remind everything lasts as one's at any.
That quote just hits so hard, especially knowing his experience. It's pure Epictetus. It's not things that disturb us, but our judgments about. It's not the event itself, getting fired, getting sick, being rejected, that breaks you. It's the meaning you attach to it. Like, getting fired doesn't automatically mean I'm worthless. It only means that if you decide, it means that.
Exactly right. And again, this isn't about suppressing your feelings. Stoicism isn't about being emotionless. That's a common misconception. It's about practicing emotion. Feel the anger, feel the sadness, feel the fear, acknowledge it, let it wash over. But then choose your response. Don't let the emotion dictate your actions. Don't let it own you. That tiny gap, that moment of pause, stimulate the event. That's where your freedom, that's where your power.
And every time you make a choice in that gap, however small, choosing calm instead of lashing out, choosing forgiveness instead of resentment, choosing just to take one more step when you want to collapse. Each choice is like casting a vote, isn't it? A vote for the kind of person you're becoming. You're literally building your character, forging your identity, one conscious choice at a time.
Absolutely. And ultimately, it comes down to this. Pain might show up uninvited. It might not be your fault, but your response, that is your responsibility. Always, you get to choose. Will this make me bitter, or will it make me wiser? Will I collapse under this, or will I find a way to rise? And that choice, that fundamental power to choose your own way, that's the one thing nobody and nothing can ever take away from you. It's always.
Wow. Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here. Really powerful Stoic tools. We talked about radical acceptance, letting go of the fight against reality. Amor, Fati, that incredible mindset of turning fuel, loving your fate, building that inner fortress through stillness, through practices like premeditatio malorum, just simple breath, voluntary hardship, training yourself for resilience by choosing discomfort, memento mori, using the awareness of death, present, and running through it all, that unwavering foundation power, your ultimate freedom.
And look, the reality is you probably will break. You'll lose your sense of direction. That's not failing. That's life. It's part of it. Here's the other. You also build. You can become someone you never, not despite every scar, part of every setback is a lesson. And every single time you go and grow wise.
So maybe the takeaway is when life does fall apart, and it sometimes will, don't just search for an escape route. Maybe search for meaning within the rubble. Search for the strength that, as the Stoics believed, is already inside. Come back to these items. Come back to yourself. Reflect, choose. And yeah, above all, try to stand tall. This whole deep dive is maybe just a reminder for today and for whatever storms come next. You really are stronger than you think. And when that storm hits, you'll be ready. Not because you can stop the storm, but because you've learned how to stand steady right in the middle of it.